Jon Jones is the GOAT. I really want to hear your thoughts because I've been hearing a mix of reviews. A lot of it's been annoying me because people are trying to take away credit from Jon Jones. Even the commentating team was like, Stipe is looking slow. And if you rewatch the fight, rewatch it a couple times, he did not look slow in round one. He only coincidentally started looking slow after Jon Jones landed that beautiful trip, which I've never seen. And people have said they've never seen that in the heavyweight division either. I don't remember what it was called, but there's a name for it, where he threw Stipe on the ground. It was beautiful. Jumped on top of him, and the ground and pound was vicious. Like he nailed him with elbows and yeah. And after that, he slowed down, but that was because he got smashed and completely wobbled. I think his balance was messed up in round 2 and round 3. So I've been hearing just nonsense, or then people saying, oh, it's his age. Look, he's older. Like it just catches up to you. It's like he doesn't look slow in round 1. So I don't know what people are talking about and trying to discredit Jon Jones. Like, when is it going to stop? I don't know. This is absolutely ridiculous. Justin, let me just turn over to you first. Do you come away from this being impressed by Jon Jones' performance?
John looks fine. I mean, he didn't look, as his former self. I mean, the thing I didn't like about the fight, what the biggest thing I didn't like about the fight is how much stroking the commentators are doing. Like John could do no wrong. He landed jab, and like, oh my God, he landed such a hard jab, and Stipe would land a good jab cross, and like, okay, well, Stipe, might be finding his. It's like it just felt like the commentary was so biased. And you know what? I'll tell you this too, and I said it in the video that I made last night, is I don't think Stipe wanted to be in there. I don't think he took this fight serious. I think he was there for a payday. And here's a couple reasons why. I'm not just saying that, but I know that it came out that Stipe didn't take work off leading up to this fight.
Yes,
And you
I
guys
heard that.
know he's a Cleveland firefighter. That is a very, very mentally and physically taxing job. You work 48-hour shifts up to 72-hour shifts, meaning that for that 48 to 72, your sleep might be neglected. He's not going to be training during those 2 or 3 days. He didn't do hardly any interviews leading up to the fight. When his demeanor in the cage, as the bell even rang, he looked broken already. When he was on the ground, he wasn't really trying to get up. I felt he was just trying to survive. I thought Stipe looked terrible. I agreed with the commentary. I thought he looked slow. I thought he looked out of pace. And yeah, the body shots might have something to do with it. But what really sold me is in Stipe didn't want to be there is after the fight, they said, hey, are you done? Oh, I'm done. I'm done. I'm not getting back in here. I'm done. He jumped to the gun to retire so fast. He didn't even get to let it sink to think a second to sink in of what just happened. I mean, don't get me wrong. Jon Jones had some devastating elbows, devastating spinning back kick. What's really affected Stipe the most were the teep kicks. He throws the way Jon was throwing that teep kick. He almost made it look like a round kick, and that comes from savate. Savate is a form of French kickboxing. They call it
Heard of it.
savate. It's French foot fighting, and the way you throw that round kick is you dig your toes in. So if this is my hand, instead of hitting with like the top of my hand or the shin, you curl your toes like this so that toes get jabbed right into
Saw
your
that.
liver.
I
And that's what
saw
John
that.
and you and I believe you and I have talked about that technique before in our training session. It's a
Okay.
form of French foot fighting. You want to dig your toes in, the ball of your foot. Darren Cruikshank is big on it. With that being said, I didn't think John looked great. I thought he looked good. I thought he looked good enough to beat Stipe.
Hmm.
But Stipe is an old man. I don't think he wanted to be in there, and it took John a long time to finish it. Now, if you talk somebody like Tom Aspinall, who's up and coming UFC heavyweight champ, he's hungry. He wants to win. He wants the fight. I don't think it's a good idea for Jon Jones to take that fight. With that being said, we talked about this on the show last week. Jon Jones was denying any chance of that fight even happening, talking about possible retirement. But what I told you on the show is Jon Jones is doing what champions do. He's putting everything else on the back burner. He was focused on his task at hand. He didn't want to talk about the Tom Aspinall. He didn't even acknowledge that it might happen. All right, and I told you that's what champions do. He's taking away all the claims that this Tom Aspinall fight might happen, so he can focus on Stipe. As soon as he was done with Stipe, then he was going to invite it back in, and that's just exactly what he did. He said afterwards, maybe we'll give you the fight you want, hinting at the Tom Aspinall, because now that he doesn't have to worry about Stipe, he can worry about the next task at hand. The next task at hand might be Tom Aspinall, and I think Jon Jones did what he's exactly supposed to do as a champion, as a fighter, as the greatest of all time. Don't don't let your mind get distracted before the fight about Tom Aspinall. Handle Stipe and then invite the next opportunity.
Okay. All right. So first, by the way, I watched the post-fight presser, so there's a little more details on that. So he did say, "Hey, maybe we'll give you guys what you want." And I took that as a indication that he was going to fight Aspinall. That's what I felt like he was saying. Then he was asked about it at the post-fight presser, and he said, "Nah, he's not really still interested in fighting Aspinall. He really wants the Alex Pereira fight." But then he said, "But if the UFC and everybody really, really wants him to fight Aspinall, he's potentially open to it, but he needs that FU money." So basically, he wants like a massive, massive payday. And he specifically said, "I want enough money so that I don't even care if I win or lose." So I don't know if this is going to happen. I'm very curious. Dana White is saying that this will be the biggest fight in the history of the heavyweight division. I don't know, and I'm not going to lose sleep over it if it doesn't happen. I'm not itching to necessarily see Jon Jones risk his legacy and go out and fight an up-and-comer, because there's going to be an endless stream of up-and-comers. Remember, if Sergey Pavlovich had won that fight, everybody would be clamoring for him to fight Sergey. So it's not about Tom or it's not about Sergey. It's about who would have won that fight. And again, there's always going to be somebody winning fights. There's always going to be a new up-and-comer young guy that's hungry, that wants to fight Jon Jones. It never ends. So I don't care. I'm okay with him never taking that fight and retiring with this tremendous legacy. The second thing is, I loved his performance last night. Now, you're the professional fighter. You're the expert on this, so you know better than me. But I was blown away by the variation of strikes. I mean, you mentioned that beautiful body kick that he landed a couple times. One time, Stipe said it was a low blow, but it was not. The commentary team said that was absolutely not a low blow. Plus, he landed some amazing, I mean, they were partially blocked, but some amazing head kicks as well, beautiful roundhouses. And then that trip out of nowhere. I don't even know if he practiced that or that came out of nowhere, but that was beautiful. I didn't see anything like that. The ground and pound was vicious. And then what a way to end the fight with the spinning back kick. That's something that people have said we almost never see that in the heavyweight division. Who's thrown a spinning back kick like that in a
We
heavyweight
don't see
fight?
that really at any division, man. I mean, it does happen every now and then, but it's not like it's a consistent thing, especially at a heavyweight. You're absolutely right.
And you see, I mean, well, Max Holloway threw a bunch of those against Justin Gaethje. Connor is actually pretty good at those spinning back kicks. We did see it with who was that fighter at the beginning of the card who was an amazing kickboxer? I can't remember his name. Fiera or something. I hadn't seen him fight before, but he was I think it was the first fight that kicked it off. He threw some crazy spinning attacks as well. But I mean, for Jon Jones as a heavyweight to be throwing stuff like that, the dynamic nature of his strike, just his entire game, and probably so many intricacies that he specifically planned for Stipe and what he perceives as Stipe's weaknesses. I don't know. I was blown away. And if he does choose to take that Tom Aspinall fight, I have heard a lot of people say that they think, Kevin Iole in particular, he thinks Jon Jones beats Aspinall. He thinks nobody beats Jon Jones in his prime because of just how excellent he looks. So that's what I think. And the funny thing is, I think if they make that fight, I hope Jon Jones wins. And I'm really disappointed that so many people put so much attention on Aspinall during this fight, ruining the buildup and ruining this moment for Jon Jones. But I think he got it back, and I think he had a great speech at the end of the fight, and really, really brought fans back onto his side. I hope it. But anyways, yeah, if he does fight Aspinall, I think he's going to get it. And then he's going to retire and be like, now what? But I guarantee you, if he beats Aspinall, if we go 5 years in the future, he'd be like, oh, yeah, and he ended his career and beat which guy again? Oh, yes. Like, I'm just saying, if Aspinall doesn't come back and then reclaim the championship, doesn't have a tremendous run, which he might, but there's a very good chance that like that might be it, or maybe he'll come back and reclaim it. Then he's not going to have the same career as Jon Jones. It's almost impossible in the heavyweight division. So even if he does fight, and people be like, oh yeah, he beat this guy and this guy, this guy. Oh, and then he ended his career with this one guy who was a champ for a little bit. But yeah, the real big fights were Stipe and Daniel Cormier. I think that's what's going to happen. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to say, man. Jon Jones is in a position right now where he can handpick his opponents for the rest of his career, man. It doesn't. He's done so much for the sport. He's done so much for the UFC. Good, bad, ugly, doesn't matter. He's just done so much. I mean, again, he made his UFC debut in 2008. To still be active over 15 years later in the UFC as the best, fighting champion after champion after champion. Jon Jones has earned his right to do whatever the hell he wants, and he can handpick his opponents for the rest of his career.
Thank you. And I don't want to hear of fans being like, no, you need to fight Tom Aspinall. He doesn't need to do anything. You said it exactly right. Why does he need to? It's ridiculous. It makes me so mad. And it's actually not fighters who are saying this. That's what I've noticed. It's all the journalists that are saying that he's got to. This is ridiculous. He's ducking. He needs to do this. He needs to do that. And I'm just like, I'm confused. I'm
Yeah, all
very
those
confused.
journalists have never fought before and they're fucking idiots and they don't know anything about anything. They think because they watch guys on TV, like we're not robots, you know, we just don't show up 100% all the time. And Jon Jones has shown his consistency as a champion is better than anybody else to ever do it. Fuck journalists. I think they're fucking scumbags. They've never been punched in the face, excluding Oscar Willis, who I have a lot of love for. You know, he's one of the incredible UFC journalists that has actually gotten in there. He had an MMA fight. I was his coach during the fight. I cornered him. Then he just went over to bare knuckle, and the reason he's doing it is because he wants to see the other side of the coin. He just doesn't want to sit behind a desk and make his opinion based when there's a lot more to it than all these fucking other bum ass journalists think.
So I'll say this. I will say New York Rick on the Ariel Helwani show today, he did say, look, at the end of the day, whatever happens with Jon Jones next, the ball is in the UFC's court, not Jon Jones, regardless of what he's saying. He was one of the first people that I've heard finally have said what I've been saying, is that stop getting on Jon Jones's case. This is up to the UFC whether or not the belt's on the line, whether or not he fights Stipe. So let's let that go. And I do think there are some MMA journalists that do a great job, but some of these guys are jumping on Jon Jones's case for not fighting this person, not fighting that person. I just don't understand how you can have this type of perspective when, again, I'm not saying you have to have fought to be a journalist, but just approach it with, just try and, I don't know, have some empathy and have some understanding of what fighters go through. And before you speak so definitively about this guy has to do that guy has to do this. I mean, we see all the time fights not happening that you could we call, I mentioned this before. Could we say that, but when Bilal fought Kobe, he was ducking Shavkat? Did anybody say that? No, because we obviously recognize that the UFC wanted to put Kobe in there. Even Bilal was saying Kobe didn't deserve it, but that wasn't a ducking. This has happened so many times where there's probably a better, more skilled, more talented up and comer than who is scheduled to fight. We saw this with Sean O'Malley versus Chito Vera, right? There's a more talented up and comer, but the UFC chooses to do something else. So that's what this is. Let it go, people. And if Jon Jones does fight Tom Aspinall, you guys better give him so much massive respect that it's out of control. Even if it's Alex Pereira, you got to give him a lot of respect because that's a very dangerous matchup. But anyways, I loved the main event. I thought it was phenomenal. I thought Jon Jones had a great post-fight speech in the cage. I thought it was a tremendous moment. He talked to Elon Musk afterwards, the president-elect. He talked to, I think, Kid Rock. He was even saying, I watched it back again a second time, and he was like, oh my God, Kid Rock, Elon Musk, this is so cool. This is wild. Like, he was still at this long of a champ, just like eating it up and enjoying that whole event. So yeah, massive congratulations. I loved it. I can't wait to see Jon Jones come back. And if you're not excited, unless it's Tom Aspinall, you don't know what you're watching. So that's all I got to say about that. We got a couple comments, and then we're going to go to the next topic here. Yeah. So Teron Brown says I think Jon Jones embarrasses Tom. I mean, dude, if he goes out there and if he annihilates Tom, I mean, he's not just going to embarrass Tom. He's going to embarrass a lot of people that have been going on and on and on and on about how Jon Jones is ducking because he knows Tom Aspinall's a tough matchup, blah, blah, blah. It's going to embarrass a lot of people. And then Teron says people accusing Jones of ducking Tom in a way reminds me of when Floyd was I think he meant ducking Manny Pacquiao. So yeah, I don't know much about that, but maybe you know more about that reference.